Hello there everybody, I'm Fabien and welcome back to Fab Motorbikes. This week I'm going to show you how to bleed the brakes on your motorcycle and ensure there's no air in there at all. But before we start, a quick click of that thumbs up button really helps out my channel, and if you've seen quite a few of my videos now, please consider subscribing. So before we get started, let's really think about what bleeding your brakes actually means. It basically is the act of removing any air bubbles from your brake fluid that is sitting within the brake lines or in your calipers or up in your master cylinder. Now, why is removing all the air important? So put it simply, brakes work by you squeeze the lever, it pushes the fluid down through the hoses, pushes against some pistons that then push against your pads, and they squeeze your brake discs. Brake fluid isn't compressible at all, but air is. So if there's any air in there, you'll get a soft, spongy, dangerous lever. And a brake lever that feels like that means you do not have peak braking performance, or in some extreme cases could lead to complete brake failure. Now let's think about why you might ever get air in your braking system anyway. So usually one case is when you've replaced your brake hoses, so you flushed out all the fluid, so there's nothing in there but air, so you need to get that out. Another case is when you had a bit of a leak perhaps, or in my case I had a seal go on one of the pistons, so it was dripping fluid and therefore taking in air as well. So there's a couple of reasons why you might have air in the system. Let's have a quick talk about what you need for this job. Brake fluid, .4 most of the time does you well. Screwdriver to open the cap on the master cylinder. All important 8mm little spanner, that is to crack open and close the bleed nipple. A hose, most importantly a clear hose. This allows you to see the bubbles coming out of the bleed nipple when you're bleeding it. And a few extras, waste receptacle, so just in case any fluid comes out at the end of the hose, stick it in there, that'll catch it. And I like to bring a few rags and papers to collect any spills as quickly as possible, or even cover up the painted sections of my bike. And just to secure a few things, a bit of tape. Let's get started. Open up the master cylinder on your motorcycle. The crosshead screwdriver that comes in the kit of your bike, if you has it, is usually the best fit. And also, while you're doing that, why not cover up as much as your bike as possible with that rag, just to ensure you don't clip anything or spill any fluid as you undo it. Also remove all the seals and caps within the master cylinder. Once the cap is off, I recommend then rotating your bars to the point where you feel your master cylinder is as level as it can be. There is roughly bang on level. Now, like me, if you've had a bit of a leakage or you've done some work in your brakes and you're running a bit low on fluid, you'll need to top it up. Now it's difficult to see, but you want your fluid level to be roughly just at the top of the window. You can see there on the inside, just at the top. It's a little difficult on that side, but I want at the top of that window. So now it's time to start the initial part of the bleeding process. A lot of people don't know is that you can get a few air bubbles out just by having the cap open and just by pumping the lever. You can see there's a little bit of movement there. I mean, this isn't the best way, but you can get a little bit of air bled out going vertically upwards. So now you've done what little you can in terms of bleeding from above, it's time to do the bulk of the work, which is bleeding the brakes from the caliper themselves. So what you'll do first is remove the bleed nipple cover. Do not lose that. The little rubber cap. Get your 8mm ring spanner. Stick that on the bleed nipple. Then apply your 5mm clear silicone hose onto that bleed nipple. Then I like to get my waste receptacle and put the other end of the hose in there, and then I like to secure it in there just with a bit of tape. Make sure it doesn't go everywhere. So just to clarify, I have my 8mm ring spanner on the bleed nipple of the caliper. Above that connected is the hose, and then I like to hang it up above the indicator, and there hanging, ideally it should be secured, is the waste receptacle. I don't really expect anything to go in there, but it's there if any fluid does happen to make its way over. Before I continue, I'll let you know that this bike and many other bikes have two brake calipers, two brake discs on the front wheel. Now the key here is to start of the brake caliper that is furthest away from the master cylinder. For example, I'll show you now. Here's the main hose coming up from the handlebars going to the brake caliper on this side, and then there's a second hose that goes over the mudguard here and then down on this side. Therefore, this side is the furthest away from the master cylinder on top of the bike. So I'm starting with this side. So once you're set up, the process is actually quite simple. I'll walk you through it. You need to squeeze the lever, and then while you're doing that, then open the bleed nipple, close it again, and then release the lever. Now here, so I've pumped the lever once and opened and closed the valve bleed nipple once, and you can clearly see, look at the bubbles in that brake fluid. So I desperately, after doing a bit of work on my brakes, needed to bleed the air out. So you effectively repeat the process, what I've just shown you, and keep going until all these bubbles are gone. These bubbles are bad and dangerous. Now as you continue through that process, your brake fluid level will drop because you are pumping it through the system. So you need to make sure you top that up. If you get it down to the section in the brake fluid reservoir where it starts taking it in, you start sucking air in, and that defeats the purpose of the whole process. So top this up as often as you need to. So I've continued the process a few times, and I'm getting to the point where I feel on this side, this caliper is done. So compared to before, look at that, no bubbles in there. A few up here still, where I was pumping them out. But down here, no bubbles. So I know this caliper is getting towards the point where it's done. So now I'm happy with my work on this side. I'm going to tighten it up as much as I can, within reason, okay? And then pull the hose off, and I've got some paper towels just to catch any fluid that will inevitably pop out when I do. Take the spanner off and reinstall the dust cap. I'm now going to repeat the process on the other side. And as you can see now, I'm all set up on the other side of the wheel, and I'm going to repeat the process. So that's squeeze, open, close, and release. Remember to top up as you go. So here we are, I'm now at that point where I'm very happy. I've got no bubbles coming out of the silicone hose at all. And the feel on the lever is solid. Those brakes are really working now. And I've topped up the fluid to the level I feel was appropriate. And I've cleaned up the cap a little bit, so there's no water or any residue or dirt of any kind. It's time to just pop that back on. And that's job done. I now have a really strong, solid feel on the brake lever, and because I've actually pumped so much new fluid through the system, I've effectively changed out my brake fluid, which is good. Hit that thumbs up button if you found this useful, and please subscribe if you've not done so already. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.